So, if you don't watch college football and you don't know a ton about Trey Lance, there's a couple things you have to know just up front. The first thing is that he only got to play one game last year due to COVID. The whole team only got to play one game. So, a lot of what we have to go off of is tape from 2019 instead of 2020, like a lot of these other quarterbacks. The other thing is that he played for North Dakota State, which, if you don't know what that is, that's a Division II school that is like the Yankees of football. Back when the Yankees would win a World Series every year, they have won 8 of the last 9 national championships that they've taken part in. As in last year didn't count because they only played one game. So this is a dominant team and a great situation for a quarterback. So we have to keep that in mind. The first thing we should probably talk about is the one game we have from 2020 because it wasn't good. Like, it just straight up was not a very good game from Trey Lance. And I think that's something that maybe is going to put a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. And let's just talk about what went wrong. We'll start off with this play because this is one of many examples of something like this that I can bring up, where what's going to end up happening on this play is that it's a cover 3 zone. And this is the concept designed to be cover 3. You have the one wide receiver who's currently lined up to Lance's left. He's the only eligible receiver currently in that area. He's going to sort of run over the middle, which usually means that the deep corner is going to want to, come in and sort of take that away, especially since it's play action. So usually these crossing routes over the middle are very effective against play action. But North Dakota State has an additional part to this play. They have a tight end then basically just sneak around, and his goal is to get to where that deep corner is supposed to be, quote unquote, but since he's taking away a different route, there could be nobody in that area. This is something teams run from time to time. If you ever wonder why there's a wide open tight end on this sideline, it's usually because of a play like this. Not always, obviously, but oftentimes. It's a really good concept, and North Dakota State is going to have success running it here. Watch, Lance takes the snap. He does run to play action, and you notice, this is working out perfectly. So a linebacker does eventually read this play, and he's trying to get back, but it's going to be tough to get back at this point. This is a great situation for Trey Lance, and this should be an easy touchdown. However, he just misses this throw, and not by a little, by a lot. And he did that a lot in this game. Now, there was a little bit of good as well. I'm not going to show 100 replays of him missing throws. He missed a lot of throws, but I'm not going to just keep dwelling on that. This one's a good play of, there's going to be a blitzer off the edge, and that's going to be really the main thing to watch here, because Lance takes the snap and you see that there's pressure. And most quarterbacks, this is a horrible situation. But one of the things Lance did a lot at North Dakota State is breakthrough tackles. That's part of what he does well as a runner. As you see, he does break through the tackles and he's able to run in. He's going to get a touchdown. We'll talk more about that later on in this video. Just wanted to show it, just kind of a little teaser by talking about the 2020 game. And one more little teaser will be this play, because it's going to be a cover 3 zone. They're going to run play action, have 2 deep routes. Basically, Lance can just decide which option he likes the best. And this kind of thing can work out very well, as these are essentially 2 one-on-one matchups on the sideline, since there's only one safety who's deep. And this is the concept that, again, teams have a lot of success running. And especially when you have a guy like Trey Lance who has a big arm, you want to run these types of plays. So again, Lance takes the snap, fakes the handoff, and then he is going to throw this one deep down the field. And you notice, okay, again, good amount of separation. You're not going to see this too often in the NFL. It's not like this, it's completely wide open. You will see guys more open later on in this video. I think you already saw a guy more open earlier in this video, but still pretty open. However, it's sometimes unfair to totally criticize the player for how open a receiver is. And by that, I mean criticize the quarterback for how open a receiver is. Because at the end of the day, if you're making accurate throws, you're making accurate throws. It doesn't matter if you didn't have to fit it through a mailbox. If you're still putting the ball where you wanted to put it, well, that's the main goal. He does that here. It's dropped, but it was a perfect throw. So good job by him. So yeah, when I first started watching the tape from Lance, that was the first game I started with, was the most recent one. And I was thinking, why would anybody draft this guy? There was a couple of positives, and I'm thinking, is that it? Because a couple of positives don't outweigh the numerous overthrows. And I'm telling you, go watch that game. It's not pretty. It really isn't. All the comments on the YouTube video that played it are all negative, saying, oh, I see why he never throws interceptions, because he throws it over everyone's head. Trust me, if you go back and watch the 2019 tape, that is far from the case. He does some things so much better, And I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe it was just the pressure of, hey, this is one game. It means everything for your draft stock. Maybe that got to him. It's a little bit concerning, but I think that the good by far outweighs the bad when it comes to Trey Lance. And the first main thing I have to talk about with Lance is his deep ball. His deep ball is it's incredible. It's maybe the best deep ball out of the draft. Admittedly, I haven't watched Lawrence's tape from last year yet, so that could change. But his deep ball is incredible. And yes, I'm including that with Fields and Wilson. His deep ball is really, really good. I'm going to stop talking about it and just start showing you some examples of it. So how about right here on this one? Perfect example where the receiver you're going to watch is that guy. He's running the go route. That's where you want to look. Lance is going to take the snap, run a play action. He looks downfield, makes this throw. And again, wide open. Yes. But what's my point? Less so about how open is the receiver and making a perfect throw, but also, just about making the perfect throw in general. I don't care about how open he is necessarily. It matters to some degree. It does. But really, I just want to show the throw. Watch. I mean, this is just, it was kind of tracked weird, but a really good throw. And there you go. That's a touchdown. This one's another pretty good example. I mean, it's at the 19-yard line, so you can't get too deep right here. But really, these sort of deeper shots is what I'm talking about. And this is a one safety deep play. It's man coverage. It's a cover one blitz. And so you have a receiver who's going to run a route that could get deep in the end zone. It'll be a one-on-one matchup. That's where Lance wants to look before this ball is even snapped. So Trey Lance does take the snap. He fakes a handoff, and he is going to throw this one deep down the field. And again, you see that there is this one less open. There is some separation, though. So this can be a good situation for Lance. And this is something that you hope your NFL quarterback can make. And I think Lance is going to prove that he is an NFL quarterback on this throw. Watch. I mean, absolutely just a beautiful throw. Couldn't ask for anything better than that. If it's any further, it's probably out of bounds. Anything shorter, and it's probably, incomplete. Maybe he could have thrown it more on a line. That is kind of one of the issues I have with Lance, is it seems like the amount of air he gets under his throws is probably his biggest issue, and a little bit more on that later. But I think as a whole, really good throw. And it can work well on a play like this as well, where it's going to be a 3rd down and 4. So, need to pick up 4 yards. It's, again, a cover one play. And playing one safety is just not the way to attack Lance. The issue is that, the running game was so strong that you kind of had to. So you were always in a tough situation. And that is something we have to mention with North Dakota State quarterbacks, is they win like all the time. Their talent is crazy. Their talent disparity is crazy. So, that's obviously a factor. But anyways, the way it works is you have a go route with the number 1 receiver, number 2 receiver runs an out. You try to throw it there. Lance takes the snap, and you're going to see, first things first, perfect timing on this one, right? The second his receiver is cutting, Lance is already in the throwing motion. But you have a finite amount of space to make this play, because there's only about 10 yards or so before the receiver runs out of bounds. You have to hit him. You want to hit him in stride, and you got to get the ball there quicker, because if it takes too long for the ball to get there, that's honestly how pick sixes happen. So you got to get the ball there in a hurry, but it's well-timed, and it's going to be a great throw. This ball just completely gets there it was on a mission. It gets there, and they're able to pick up a solid gain on that one. So again, not necessarily the most crazy throw, but still a very good, accurate throw down the field. We then have this one, which I really liked, where it's going to be, again, sort of a similar thing, just in that it's down the field. It's going to be a zone coverage play, and with 2 receivers running deep to Lance's right, and then a 3rd receiver who's in a jet sweep motion, who's going to eventually be the guy that Lance wants to throw to. Basically, the hope is that the opposing defense, they pass off the first 2 receivers, assuming they can cover the 3rd receiver. But then when the 3rd receiver runs deep, you now have someone who is hoping to just cover the middle of the field, maybe having to cover deep. That's the way this play can work. And watch, Lance takes the snap. This play is working out pretty well. Lance has time, and you see that there's, definitely a wall he has to throw this ball over. So this is a high degree of difficulty throw. You didn't see a ton of high degree of difficulty throws from Lance, but this is absolutely one of them. And again, as you see, perfect throw. Could have maybe been a little bit higher just to be a little bit more out of harm's way. So I guess not perfect, but a very good throw from Trey Lance again, pretty far down the field. We'll show one more before we move on to other stuff. This is going to be a cover 2 zone right here, but with a receiver running a curl route, that's hopefully taking away the safety. You then have a tight end who's going to run a deep route. The only way this wouldn't work if the safety covers the receiver would be if a linebacker is able to read this play and play tight coverage and sort of break it up. And once this play starts, Lance fakes a handoff, and you notice that, okay, there's a defensive player for UD who is currently doing a good job of really playing coverage. The issue, of course, is that he can't really look back for the ball, since if he does that, the tight end could then make a move and get more open. So that's a clear issue. So you want to take advantage of that if you're Lance, and you can kind of see, maybe make this back shoulder throw it closer to the sideline, to the top of the screen, because if you do that, that's how you can potentially make this play work. So that's what Lance is going to try and do here. And again, watch this throw. I mean, just perfect. It was actually dropped. That wasn't even broken up. I mean, I think maybe part of it was the arms might have gotten touched a little bit, but that's a great throw. And you absolutely love to see that kind of play. And it's just good awareness. Now, will some NFL players be able to, turn their shoulder and get an interception? Maybe, but not most of them. So yeah, I really would say that is Trey Lance's best attribute, is stuff like that, is throwing the deep ball. And trust me, I could have made this video an hour long just breaking down deep balls that were complete from Trey Lance. I'm only showing a small sample there with those 5 plays, and a lot of them weren't even really deep balls. They were kind of just, 20-yard passes or so. I'm talking like 50-yard bombs down the field with perfect accuracy. He does that, and he does it consistently, and that can, that absolutely plays a role. And if you're someone who feels like it's better to get a couple of those chunk plays than it is to just sort of dink and dunk down the field, well, then Trey Lance might be your guy to draft. The other thing he does really well is run with the football. My one kind of issue I do have with Trey Lance will actually be shown on the first running play I have selected. It's going to be this play. And to be clear, just because I have an issue with this play doesn't mean that it's a bad play. In fact, it's an awesome play. This is 3rd down and goal, and it's going to be a designed rollout. Lance runs to the bottom of the screen, and really they want to get the tight end open. They want the tight end to fake as though he's blocking, but then kind of sneak out. Hopefully he gets open, and you can make this throw. And with the play action, that's going to help the fake right here. So Lance takes a snap, does run a play action, and the issue is that just, the guy you wanted to get open isn't open. So now what do? There are kind of some other options sort of further back. But again, those are tough options. Lance is going to have to throw across his body. And also, I just don't think either of them are really that open. So Lance is in a tough spot. What can he do? Well, he can try and run for it. But again, that's going to be a little bit difficult. There's defenders in the area. So is he going to be able to get in? As you see, he gets stopped short, and then he doesn't. Then he powers through and gets the touchdown, which is awesome. But at the same time, will that work in the NFL? I really just don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Like, this one's going to be another good example of that, where what you see is there is a defensive player who I've circled right there. That's the main guy to watch before this play starts. Because as you see, he is going to eventually get through, and he's going to apply some pressure on Lance. He's about to get an arm on Lance. And I feel like defensive linemen take Trey Lance down here in the NFL. In the NFL, defensive linemen don't miss very many tackles against quarterbacks. It happens, but it is rare. And I feel like half the time it does happen, it's because they're concerned about committing a penalty and they end up being too cautious. So, usually you want to avoid these situations at all costs, but Lance would welcome them sometimes because he was so good at avoiding them in college. Watch, as you see right here, he is going to get around the sacks, and he's going to actually run and pick up a decent gain on that one. So I think that's a really good play from Trey Lance. So my issue is something that's actually a positive in college, but I've always said this, and it's very rarely about quarterbacks. I usually say this kind of thing about like a wide receiver or a halfback. I'm always wary of drafting a player who part of their game, whether it's a significant part or a small part of their game, is breaking tackles, because that's something that does kind of sometimes, go away once you get to the NFL level. Now, not always, right? Like Deebo Samuel was good at breaking tackles in college. He continued to be good at those in the NFL. N'Keal Harry, good at breaking tackles and, evading guys in college, not good at that in the NFL. So if that's a part of your game, it's just a wild card. I'm not saying that it's going to be bad. I'm just saying that I really don't know if it's going to be good or bad. But the one way I know his running ability will be good would be on something like this, which is what's going to happen is, really, I think it's kind of a fun concept defensively, where you have it's someone who's lined up as an edge is going to drop back into coverage. Then you have someone who looks like they're going to be a linebacker covering a tight end, but he's going to actually instead rush the passer. So still a 4-man rush, still zone coverage, just a little rotation there that's going to hopefully fool Trey Lance. But once his play starts, Lance, he is going to eventually read what the play is, and he's going to roll out to where he sees that he now has an open player, but it's obviously there's kind of an issue here. It's not the biggest of windows, and on top of this, he's rolling, and not just rolling, but rolling to his left, which makes it a more difficult throw than if you're rolling to your right, because you can sort of use your momentum if you're rolling to your right. If you're rolling to your left, you're throwing against your momentum, which means that you could make a weaker throw, and when you're trying to fit it through a tight window, and it's not super tight, but, typically when you make this throw, you want to get it there in a hurry, but it's going to be more difficult to do that now. So this is, again, it's a pretty high degree of difficulty type play, even at the NFL level. But Lance does make this throw. They are able to pick up a first down right there. He also can accelerate pretty quickly when he's running. So it's not quite Lamar Jackson quick, but, pretty quickly. So I think that'll help him in the running game because acceleration means a ton. It could be a little bit better, to be honest. It's not like elite or anything, but it'll be fine for the NFL level. And he can run designed runs. I do think that he uses his physicality maybe a bit too much, but at the same time, it might work in the NFL too, because we've seen guys be able to carry that over to the NFL. And again, that's why I say it's a wild card, which isn't necessarily a negative. And it could be a great thing if it works out for whichever team ends up drafting him. So there's maybe just view it as a potential plus that could happen. And obviously being able to throw on the run, that'll especially matter if he's on a team with a bad offensive line, because then he can, that might be necessary in some ways. And if he can extend plays, that big arm and ability to throw on the run could be a really good thing. So I think that there's a lot of positives with his legs. I do have some negatives. I'm going to get into just sort of miscellaneous positives I found. That'll be my next little section of this video before finally getting into some of the negatives I have. And then at the end of the video, my total verdict. I'm not sure why I'm saying, giving the table of contents in the middle of the video, but whatever, we'll roll with it. And let's talk about some other positives. So let's talk about this play. It's a 2nd down and 8, and it's, we're only a little over a minute into the game. So 0-0, basically just run your offense. And this is the concept. It's zone coverage they're going up against. There's several routes that Lance could look towards here. He could try something underneath, like throw it to the halfback to his left, or he could try to throw something over the middle. He could even take a deep shot, but probably with the 2 safety deep look, it makes more sense to look either, a check down or something over the middle. Lance takes the snap. He is going to look towards his left. He wants to hit the halfback. I believe it's a little bit hard to tell from this angle. It's frustrating not having all 22, which apparently it's impossible to get all 22 footage unless you buy it off the dark web. So I don't know how to do that, but you can clearly see he's looking to his left. However, he is going to then decide that whatever he sees down there, he doesn't like, so he's going to find something else. And watch how quick he gets to that second read and makes the throw. He hit a ref, which is just hilarious. Way to go, ref, by getting in the way. Can't let that happen. Luckily, in the NFL, refs don't stand there like they do in college, so that shouldn't be an issue for Trey Lance. But, really good job of getting to the next progression and that quick release. And speaking of a quick release, let's talk about a play where that's a pretty good example right here. So it's going to be quarters coverage. You see that there's a receiver running a route that will get open quickly underneath, but for this to really work, you would like the ball to get there quickly, although the defensive back in that area is actually going to drop back a little bit. So you kind of want to throw this one the second that the defensive back is furthest away from the wide receiver, obviously, or just furthest down the field. And watch, Lance takes the snap. He does hesitate for just a second, but as you see right now, he's not in the throwing motion whatsoever, which is really key because, again, he's going to want to get this ball to a certain point pretty quickly. And watch how he just fires it in an instant and is able to get it over. So good catch and release type thing, almost like a 3-point shooter. Catch it, get it away. Good job by Lance. And I also like this play too a lot, where this is going to be a zone coverage play. And what's going to happen is that it's zone coverage. There's a receiver who could get into a gap in coverage. That's what Lance wants to do. But what, the play itself typically isn't that difficult. But one of the things that I love about this is typically what you want to do is you don't throw the ball to where your receiver is. You throw the ball to where the gap in coverage is. You throw it to where there's an opening, not necessarily to where your receiver is. And if your receiver has to make a tough catch, that's better than a defensive player getting an interception. So that's what you want to do. And watch this just, Perfect timing, really good job, gets it into that gap, really well done. So at this point in the video, you might just be wondering, okay, well, is Trey Lance just like the greatest quarterback ever? Is he just going to dominate? Well, not exactly. There are some issues I saw in Lance's game, but I do really like him as a prospect. I think there's a lot really good. And I actually think that maybe you can get him a bit undervalued. Maybe you can get him with a mid first round pick just because his last season, he only played one game and wasn't that good. So maybe there's some additional value there. But yeah, there are some negatives. There are some reasons why, I still have Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence ahead of him. And Justin Fields, it's kind of a toss up. And I'll give you my final verdict on that after I just talk about some negatives with Trey Lance. So there's something like this to start off where clearly you see this. This looks like cover zero. It isn't exactly, but that's what it looks like on paper. Is a cover zero. There is going to be a player over the middle of the field. But really what Lance has to be aware of here is he just has to know where he could make a quick throw. And you look at his tight end sort of towards the bottom of the screen. That's really the guy Lance probably should be looking towards on this one. Instead, he takes a snap and looks for something sort of longer to develop, and eventually pressure happens and he gets sacked. So not a great play from Lance on that one. Now, pressure came immediately, so how much do you really blame him? But at the same time, I do feel like that's something that he should have at least had a parachute in order for when he saw that play at the line of scrimmage. This one's a great example of something that, the last play is something he can fix. This play is something he can fix, but it's something he'll have to fix, where it's going to be that he's going to roll out to his right. There's a receiver running deep and other receivers. We've seen this kind of concept before, actually, on a play I showed earlier. But when Trey Lance takes a snap this time, since it's zone coverage, it looked like there was actually a cross up. So you see him, no one's near him. He has all the time in the world to make a throw. There is a receiver wide open. The guy running a deep route, he is wide open. And this is a touchdown if Lance can make this throw. But the issue is, because of the rollout, I think he's just sort of a little bit off balance. And really, this is something where he should just take his time, make sure that he can get his feet planted and his shoulder square, and then make the throw instead of trying to make this throw immediately, because your receiver is going to keep running deep. He's going to stay open. You just get your feet square so you can make the throw. But watch how he throws this almost like a jump ball where he's jumping backwards like he's Kobe, doing that. But at this point, there was so much separation. Right now, there's like 5 yards of separation, and the receiver isn't moving. And, this has happened for more than 1 second. So there was probably 10 yards of separation. If he just got his feet square, this is an easy touchdown. Instead, it gets hung up a bit too long, still catchable. So maybe you could argue, well, I'm being too hard on him. But in the NFL, that won't work. And it's a simple fix, so it can be fixed. But, a negative he'll have to work on once he gets to the pros, for sure. I also want to talk about this play because I think that this is a very interesting play where it's the same thing I talked about earlier. You have the receiver on the left. He's going to try to get a deep corner, go towards the middle. You then have a tight end sort of sneak in that area. Same thing as the overthrow I showed you, the very first play I showed of this video. Now, one stat you might have heard with Lance is that he's thrown, in 2019, he threw 28 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And he also rushed for 14 touchdowns. So that's 42 total touchdowns, no picks. Is he just the greatest quarterback ever? Yes and no. There is a bit of an asterisk. Obviously, some luck is going to come into play, and this was a very dangerous throw. Watch, Lance takes the snap, and he's going to fake a handoff. He rolls out to his right, and there is pressure, and he kind of throws it while getting hit. And at this point, this could easily have been intercepted, and that's just a throw that I think Lance wasn't willing to take a play for a loss. And that is a little something I worry about with Trey Lance, because so many plays worked out so well for North Dakota State. How well is he going to do when he has to throw the ball into the ground? It's a real thing to be concerned about. I mean, the most notable quarterback from North Dakota State prior to Trey Lance is Carson Wentz, who I don't think has ever taken a play for a loss. He'll throw it while getting tackled upside down with his left hand and throw it right into a defender. So it's something you have to worry about going into the NFL. This one is luckily for Lance dropped, so still perfect record. But again, a little bit of an asterisk next to it, although not much. It's still an incredible season. I'm not trying to take that away from him. There's also this very small thing, but you're going to notice that he's going to fumble the snap on the handoff. He did that a bit. I don't know how much to take that into consideration, but again, little small thing I noticed that happened too much. Peyton Manning always talked about if that happens once, that's one time too many. Well, I couldn't find the actual exact numbers, but he had about 5 of them. So got to clean that up. But I don't know if that's his fault or the back's fault. So hard to really say. So yeah, those are really my final thoughts on Trey Lance. I mean, there are some negatives for sure. There absolutely are. I do think that the positives outweigh the negatives, and he is worth spending a first round draft pick on. The debate between him and Fields I find pretty interesting because I actually think that Trey Lance has a much lower chance of busting than Fields does. Fields has a chance to become a bust. Trey Lance, I mean, everyone has a chance, but he seems pretty like sure thing. It's possible that just the playing in a good offense, he won't be able to adjust to playing in maybe a not great offense, depending on where he goes. I really think that like Trey Lance to New England would be really good for him. Get a good offensive line because he was just not under pressure like hardly at all in North Dakota State, and he's going to be in for a rude awakening once he gets to the NFL. So adjustments will have to be made for sure, but I also think that his pocket presence is pretty good, so I'm not really that concerned about it. When there was pressure, he did a pretty good job. Again, some plays are the exception. I showed one of them, can make some better reads, but is still pretty good for a college player. Not to mention that wasn't even his last year in college, so maybe watching tape, he's gotten smarter. And I also think that there is a very high ceiling for Lance as well with his deep balls, with the fact that he can run. Maybe you could see him. They're not exactly the same, but kind of a Lamar Jackson type in that, I think Lance is the more accurate passer and nowhere near the runner, but sort of you can use Lance as a runner to open up bigger passing lanes and just make things easier in that regard and take advantage of his cannon of an arm. There is high upside in Lance. I like all of these prospects I've graded so far. I've really enjoyed watching their game, even though North Dakota State film is very difficult to find, and most of the time you have to watch the full. There's like only the full game uploaded. Oftentimes you can find like the condensed versions of some of these games. But anyways, that's a non sequitur. I do think there's a lot really good about Lance. I think that for Fields, I feel like he has a higher ceiling. I think Fields has a lot more issues, but I think if Fields fixes his issues, he'll be better than Lance, even if Lance fixes his issues as well. I think that there's a better chance Trey Lance fixes his issues than Fields does. I think I would go with Justin Fields. I think I would just go with the guy with the higher ceiling. That's my opinion. They both have very high ceilings. I think that's what I would do. And also, I think that Justin Fields, it kind of depends on your offense too. If you like deep passes, maybe Lance is your guy. If you like, that's really my verdict. I'd say it depends on the offense. The offense I would run would be similar to maybe Arthur Smith offense, so I'd go with Fields. But if you'd run a different offense, then maybe you go with Lance. I think you can really argue either guy, and I think they'll both hopefully be successful. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.